Our reading today is John chapter 3, verse 16 through to 26. Bit of an unusual chapter division in our readings, but who am I to question the Moravians and their wonderful reading plan that has been in continuous print since 1731. Anyway, we start reading with perhaps the most important, central, well-known verse in all of the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son. And these are the words of Jesus. They're spoken first to Nicodemus, a member of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish elite, the ruling body, a highly educated and powerful man. But also, as we saw from yesterday's reading, a seeker, a person of peace, someone who sought Jesus out. And I think just reflecting on yesterday's reading, Nicodemus, he's trying to work out, well, who is Jesus and what is his message that he's bringing from God? How should we respond to that message? I think that's what Nicodemus is trying to work out. And yesterday in our reading, Jesus was very clear. Entering God's kingdom, this new kingdom, it isn't about physical birthright. You're not born into it physically, which I think was a big one for the Jewish people, the Jewish nation. You were born a Jew, therefore you were born as an heir to the promises, as a son of Abraham, as a child of God. It was your birthright. But in this new kingdom, you would need to be reborn, born of the Spirit of God, born again. And now Jesus explains what we must do in order to be born again. And notice I say what we must do. That's the religious way of thinking. That was the Jewish way of thinking. And what we must do, Jesus says, is simply this: believe. Believe. Jesus is introducing here this key idea, this key concept that we will later know as salvation by grace through faith. We believe it. We are invited into this new and coming kingdom because of God's love. For God so loved the world. God takes the initiative. The Father sends the Son out of his love to rescue us, to redeem us. He didn't send his Son into the world to judge the world. Did you notice that in today's reading? And I think that would have been an important piece of information for Nicodemus. Nicodemus would have been steeped in the Old Testament scriptures and prophecies. He would have known them incredibly well. And some of those scriptures about the Messiah that was to come seemed to suggest that when the Messiah came, he would come as judge of all the earth. Now that is true. That in a sense that is true. When Christ returns to this earth for the second time, we call that his second coming. He will indeed return as judge to judge the living and the dead. I don't believe that day is very far away. And he will respond to the condemnation that a person has brought upon themselves through the lack of their belief in Jesus, the Son of God. And that's what we see in verse 18. But now at this first incarnation, this first coming to earth, it's like John says, light has come into the darkness to illuminate what is evil and dark and to give people the opportunity to step into the light. Verse 21. As we live in the truth, we come into the light. We step into the light, and that is another way of talking about repentance. Repentance is stepping out of darkness and into God's light, into God's truth. So God, in his love, invites us to step into his new kingdom of light Through spiritual rebirth, we are reborn as sons, daughters, heirs of this new kingdom. And what do we need to do in order to experience that? Oh, it's just wonderfully simple, isn't it? It's to believe. Believe and receive, so that, to quote Jesus in verse 21, so that it will be plainly seen by all that what has been done through God. And that is grace. That is a definition of grace. The work of salvation is God's work. It's not our work. We receive it by faith, his work on our behalf, and we enter into that. We step into it. We believe it. There is so much good work, good kingdom work for us to do, to work in the kingdom. But it's so important to remind ourselves this day and every day that the work we do for the Lord has to flow out of faith, out of belief, out of identity, out of sonship. We are not saved to work for him. We're saved so that he can work through us. It's a wonderful truth, isn't it? Let's rest in that today.